we are just days away from the biggest election of our lifetime, or should I say one of them? Some say the biggest. My show, we don't care if you're a Democrat, if you're Republican. I'm just about voting, getting out and being the change that you want to see. And our next guest has been just a pivotal voice for so many Americans. For so many people of color across the country. He had a book called How to Be Black. And now his podcast is just making more noise than ever. And I wanted to bring him on the show because it is important for us to understand how we should be as Americans, how we should be as citizens. And his podcast, How to Citizen, is giving us the lessons that we need. Baratunde Thurston, welcome to the show.
Crisco, kid, it's an honor to be here with you. Thank you for having me.
Well, sir, let's jump right into it. Like I said, this is one of the most important elections of our lifetime. How to Citizen, I know you cover so many things in your podcast. Where do we even start, I guess, to really grab people's attention to understand how important this election is and how important everyone's voice is?
You know, every election is important. I think in this moment, there's a lot on the line, up and down the ballot, in various states and various counties and various cities. And we live, for now, in a democracy. And democracy means people power. It means we're in charge. So we have a job interview coming up, a series of job interviews. People want to get paid by us to do things that are good for us. And it's up to us to make sure we pick the right people and then that they do the job. I think this election is particularly important because we've had a lot of attacks on the very idea of democracy, on the very idea of people power, on the very idea of people getting to vote and then having those votes counted. So to counter that messaging, I encourage everyone to have your voice heard and get your vote out and make sure it's counted, because that's how you send a signal to the system and remind yourself that you're in charge.
Right. You know, I like that. We have to send the message. The message has to be clear. One thing that I'm facing locally here, I'm running for mayor of Phoenix, is kind of the voter suppression. And it's not necessarily from, I think, the powers that we think may be, but it's from other candidates. And there are people as well, meaning that, hey, you don't want to vote for this person. Hey, don't vote for this. Don't waste your vote. And it may not be picking up mailboxes and going to the door and taking people's ballots and not turning them in, because that's happening in this city as well. It's crazy to see these stories on the news.
It's really troubling to see any level of voter suppression, voter intimidation, or voter disrespect. When more people vote, the system is more legitimate. The system. When fewer people vote, there's less legitimacy. I think about it like TVs. You know, pixel density, I'm a big nerd. I like that. The HD, the 4K, the 8K, more pixels, more better, right? More votes, more legitimacy, more votes, more democracy. So I will look suspiciously at any politician who's trying to discourage people from voting, because it means they lack faith in themselves. What you're saying is, I can't handle a fair fight. And that's weak. When people do that, when they discourage your vote, they're encouraging some people. Right? It's when a politician wants to pick their constituent and not the other way around. And when you don't vote, somebody else is. So their vote has more power.
You know, are you familiar with Yellow Pain? Have you had a chance to talk to him
my
yet?
vote don't count. No, honestly, if you know this dude, tell him to hit me up.
I will.
Love the video that he dropped, called My Vote Don't Count, expressing the opposite opinion. It's the best explanation of our electoral system I have ever seen. And I read a lot of stuff. I watch way too much YouTube. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I had him on 2 weeks ago. And one of the things that we were talking about is if you don't go to the voting poll, if I don't go, if other people, our friends, our family members, there are people that are happy about that.
Yeah.
They're praying that certain people don't go vote, because they're going to be other people that are going to make these decisions for you about your life.
That's right.
So we have to take that opportunity to get out there and vote and really be a part of the process. And you're right. I thought it was brilliant the way that he broke down from the federal to the state to the local level, because some people don't really understand that infrastructure, homelessness, educational opportunities or access can happen at the local and the state level, and other things that we take for granted because so much attention is placed on the federal that they're not paying attention to local. And so I will definitely connect y'all because that is an awesome conversation that I would love for y'all to have. You are very credible because you've been a part of the Obama administration. You've helped out with a lot of other political different campaigns or different, well, I guess you can call it campaigns, because if you're encouraging people to vote and you're creating your own movement to encourage education and people to be active in the process, I would think that's definitely a campaign in its own. And how to citizen. A lot of us, we use the term, your podcast kind of breaks it down even more into what we should all be doing or can be doing as a collective, but more importantly, as individuals and how we can contribute. Can you please elaborate on the podcast?
Yes. And first, let me offer a generous clarification to say that I was part of the Obama administration, maybe a little bit of a gray area. I never worked for the White House. I didn't get paid by the White House. I took no government money to be in the White House. I did advise that White House on a number of issues, in particular, how to communicate with the public. I was a part of the Black blogger community, and they brought us in for some perspective. But I don't know if that counts as being part. So if anybody who actually got paid by Obama is like, he wasn't on the payroll, I don't want you up in my DMs. The show and Citizen, look, you're based in Arizona. So you more than most people understand the weight and the weapon that this word citizen can mean. And it's been used to divide us. It's been used to privilege some people and exclude others. It's been used to turn people against their own family. It's been used to kidnap children in our name at the border and separate them from their family. So this show is not about that version of the word. This show is about a version of the word that is inclusive, that is active, and is trying to take the word citizen as a verb, as a set of things we can do. It's understanding that it involves showing up, that we have a job to do in this democracy, that we need each other. It's about building relationships and investing in our relationships, not just in ourselves. It's about understanding our power and feeling good about understanding that power and then using it for the benefit of the many, not just the few. So that's kind of like the theory of the show. And it's on a personal level. I just got tired, man. Like, things are hard. 2020 has been a lot, like a lot. There's been a lot of death. There's been a lot of loss. Right. We've lost so much. And the news, they're trying to do a good job. I don't think there's like evil or bad people actively trying to misinform us, but I do think they're missing the mark in terms of what we need. And I needed a different kind of message. I understood and now understand there's a lot that's wrong, but I needed to hear who's working to make it right. I understand that screaming into a pillow is a reasonable response to all this doom and gloom and death and destruction, but I needed to know what I could do about it myself. So, seeing very few other examples, we set out to make a show to tell the story of people on the ground making a difference and to give the audience things they could do with their hands, with their minds, with their money, with their mouths, with their community, besides screaming to the pillow at night.
Right. I like the way, I like your delivery, man. I like the way, and I appreciate the way that you talk with people. A lot of people that have podcasts and a lot of people that are given platforms, I feel they take advantage and they talk to people. And I appreciate your understanding. And you mentioned earlier, I think the term also is empathy. I think the news sometimes becomes so robotic in the delivery that, again, they're just giving you this information, comes on a screen, deliver it, comes on a screen, talk about it. Hey, send camera team A over here, send team B over here. And we're losing the empathy when we're talking about people's lives who have been lost due to COVID-19. We're talking about small businesses that closed because they couldn't get funding for wherever city they're at. And sometimes when you're inundated with all this information, you're right, it's heavy. It weighs us down. And there wasn't, and I still think there's not enough uplifting and recovery mode, because even though we're not fully out, we have to start rebuilding. We have to start recovering. And that's why your podcast and others, I think, are very important into that recovery mode. So we can start healing a little bit. So if every individual can get just a little bit of healing, they can spread that with their neighbor. They can spread that with their family member.
I've been, seeing the news and feeling the pain in this country like so many of us. And I had this thought that every bit of leadership that we lack out of Washington, I see every day in our communities. We've done a couple of different shows with the COVID theme on How to Citizen. And one of them was about this movement called the community fridge. Started in New York City, has taken off all over the country. I'm here in LA. There's many of them in the different neighborhoods and cities of LA County. And it's people taking that need. Folks are hungry. We see the pictures. The food bank lines are miles long. And businesses are donating their power. Folks are donating fridges. Communities are popping up to manage the fridge, to stock it, and figure out what people need and what people want. And there was this beautiful story out of here in LA where some women who work in cleaning ladies, they go by every morning on their way to work and they clean the fridge. Nobody made them do it. Nobody paid them to do it. They took ownership of the problem and the partial solution in their own community. They didn't have to sign a contract. They just felt connected to each other in that way. And they said, I don't have money, but I got some Lysol. Hit it.
Right.
That's great. As people have been donating personal protective equipment, there's a lot of good and a lot of beauty that's coming out of this moment of darkness, a lot of light. And it's really nice to be able to shine light on the light a little bit.
You know, this morning, maybe about an hour ago, I had a conversation on Facebook, and we were talking about parents.
Yeah.
And I made the comment, look, everything that our parents taught us wasn't all correct. And I talked about breaking generational curses. And I don't want to go too deep. We're not going religious, but I want to get your take on some of the political things that our parents have passed down may or may not have been 100% correct. And I think part of our duty is to understand maybe where they were coming from, why they believe that, and they pass down their political, their religious, their societal beliefs onto you, but how each individual has to understand that you cannot just strictly blame your parents' mentality and their education and their, reasoning why. You have to figure out your own and do what's best for you and your family moving forward at the same time to really break something that is kind of held on to you. You can be free from that. And just speaking politically right quick, and for this election, what do you think is the most important thing people should know to really wake themselves up and be decision makers for their own selves?
First of all, just a moment for what you shared about breaking cycles. I mean, that works for systems of abuse, and violence in the home. That works for financial habits. That works for political ideology at all points of the spectrum. Just because your parents did it doesn't make it right. And we don't have to be held captive by it. We can free ourselves from that. So that was beautiful, man. I just want to give you some love for that. I'm moved. In terms of an important message for people in this election, just do what you can. I don't want to be one of these people who shames folks into voting. If you don't vote, you're disrespecting your ancestors and blah. Maybe. I don't know. I'm not your ancestor. I'm not in a position to quite judge that. But I do want folks to remember that this whole system exists for us. It's the consent of the governed. That's the whole ball game right there. And we get really confused, and it serves some people to confuse us. Well, the big companies and the big business and the lobbyists and the fat cats and the politics, that's all real. Those are real characters in the play. But the main character is us, is we the people. And we have an opportunity every couple of years to really send a message, to send a signal, and to claim that power. It's just sitting there. It's just sitting there. I live in LA. 54% of my city's budget goes to policing. I think that's absurd. That's a majority. Phoenix, 44%. 44%. In most cities in the country, the number one budget outlay is to policing. So we all live in a police state. That's extreme to me. That's not a judgment on people who work in law enforcement. That's just a mathematical absurdity. There's nothing else we could do. So how do you feel about things like that? What's in your city or your county's budget? Does it reflect your values? And use this opportunity to make a statement. And then don't stop. Don't stop. Olympic athletes don't just work every 4 years. You train all the way around, year round, and you get ready. And if you don't medal, you're still in the game.
Right.
You're still in the game. So if your candidate doesn't win, if your ballot measure doesn't succeed, that is not a cause to opt out. That means you opt in more.
Right.
That's why we have the process. The solution to disappointing elections is more elections.
Yep. That's the perfect segue. I want to go to our last question right quick. Is November 4th, if your candidate doesn't win, if your proposition doesn't pass, because you just touched on it right now. And this is where I like How to Citizen, because the lessons that you're talking about, these conversations, look, maybe everybody needs a break November 4th, November 5th. There's going to be some cities that are going to wild out and some communities that, whether they like it or not, whoever, we don't know at this point. What do you want people, what is your message on how to move forward? November 4th, all the information that you've had, all your guests, what do you want people to know how to navigate forward?
I want people to make a recommitment to each other. We were never promised a United States of America. That is not a law. That is not a fact of physics or any known science. The United States of America exists because we believe in it. That's it. It's a figment of our collective imagination that we made real. So was Quibi for like 3 months and then it's gone, right? All of these things, they exist because we believe in them. So I want us, regardless, and I'm honestly, I'm talking to myself right now. I want us to continue to believe in each other, to continue to invest in the process that allows us to peacefully coexist. I don't want to hear nonsense about storming the gates and arming up and get the strap. You don't take a gun to a ballot box. If you don't like the outcome of an election, we have more elections. We have more ballot initiatives. We live to fight another day. And without that, we're actually not a nation. We're just a collection of individuals. And when we are a collection of individuals, we don't have any power. We have power when we come together. So let's work it out, America.
Man, there it is. Baratunde Thurston.
Crisco Kid.
Thank you so much for your time today. Like I said, man, fan of the work. I love what you're doing. And How to Citizen podcast, you can stream that. Where do you want them to go? I know iHeart. I know it's on Apple. I mean, it's everywhere, right?
It's everywhere. You can go to howtocitizen.com. And I'll give a special to your audience. I have a somewhat public text message number. Hit me up, 202-894-8844. Put Crisco Kid in the message so I know how you found me, and give my man here some credit and some extra love. Thank you so much. This has been a really moving and beautiful conversation, brother.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you very much. Have a great rest of your day.
You too. Peace.